Catus Maximus here with a basic review of the Shimano Alfine component group set for touring or street bikes. I really like this component group set. This is apparently a hollow forged crank that's one piece. It has the axles integrated through it. That's why you don't see any bolts or mounts right here. So this and the axle are one piece, and then the crank on the other side just bolts onto the end of that. Let's get a look at the front wheel here. So these are 28-inch wheels. So there's part of the component group. They're 32 spoke instead of 36, but they're still pretty rigid. It uses double-butted spokes. I don't know if you can really see, but there is a little tapered section there. It's hard to get the camera to focus. It does have a 6-volt, 3-watt AC alternator hub for powering lights, but it really has a lot of resistance generating that much power. It's amazing what 3 watts of power, how much effort it takes. So I normally don't use it. It has a tiny little connector, which is kind of designed to get unplugged easily, and so it won't break that off. Quick release, and I've been pretty satisfied. Those wheels have been pretty strong. As you can see, the wheels can take rim brakes if you need them to. I always thought on this bike, since it has the mounts, I could do double brakes, but that would be weird. Here's the front caliper. They've been strong. They use mineral oil, so they're not poisonous or caustic. If you get any leaks, they're pretty easy to maintain. The one thing of note I would say is a detractor is they use Shimano's proprietary spline drive disc rotors, and the nut they use is the same kind of nut that's used on a cassette on the back of the standard bike, and you use the same tool to get them on and off. It has little plastic covers for the spokes, and they kind of are a little funky and get loose sometimes, but they're not bad. And they do take Schrader valves, even though I have a Presta tube in it. As you can see, it is outboard bearings, so they're closer to the crank and they're larger, makes it easier. Because it's a hub bike, it has an indexable bottom bracket. This is a Joe Breezer Finesse 2011. There's the rear brake setup. As you can see, there's a nut, because the axle has to be solid, because that's where the counteractive force of the internal hub is. You have to have a 15mm wrench to change the tire. There's the hub. It doesn't look so bad. Here, we'll get to the other side. Here we are, and that's the 8-speed internal hub. So internal hubs are like automatic transmissions with a shifter, like a paddle shift, and so you have to manually shift it. The one thing you have to know is you cannot shift under power, up or down. You have to just basically stop pedaling for a second, but what is great is you can shift into any gear you want, whether or not the wheel is moving. So you can just be stopped sitting here, and I can just see there's the shifter. It's very compact, and I can just shift it, and I'm actually in each gear just immediately. As soon as I pedal, I'm in top gear. We'll drop this back down. There's a procedure here where you go up to 5th gear and you drop it down to 4th. You can see the little window. There's a little green line in there. You will want to adjust it so those green lines or dots line up, because there's these internal ratchet pawls, kind of like a hand tool ratchet, and that's what engages and disengages. But they don't actually move. Once they're set for the gear, they don't make any sounds. So when you freewheel, you basically don't hear any sound. And that's the most amazing thing, is the hub's totally silent. You don't have a greasy cog set. You don't have jockey wheels or any of that making noise. The chain is pretty tight. You want to have just a little bit of play in the chain like that. But it never hits the frame, so you never have any of those noises. And it's once you get used to just letting off the pedals and being able to shift into any gear, it starts becoming very handy. Here, let's go up to the shifter. The other thing to get used to is that the shifter operates in the opposite direction. So when you pull on a Shimano ratchet type shifter, so when you pull the trigger, you end up going into the lowest gear, the hill climbing gear, where on a derailleur bike you go into the fastest gear. But what is nice is you can just shift in any gear, so you can come to a quick stop avoiding something, and it would be hard to start off. You need to try to derail your chain to actually get in a lower gear, which is tougher. Here you can just go down the first gear and start pedaling, and you're on your way, and that's really been pretty nice. The only issue I can say is I had trouble with this shifter actually working, but I just pulled off this cap down here and sprayed some high-grade Teflon ceramic lubricant in there, and it's been shifting fine ever since. So periodically make sure you oil the shifter, otherwise the little ratchet that grabs the cable won't engage, and you can't go up gears. You can go down, but you can't go up. That was the only issue I've had. So it's a pretty nice setup. I don't know if I mentioned, but it's because there is no cog set, there is no dish on the wheel. So as we can see, the spokes have the same angle on each side. So it's a nice rigid rear wheel, where when you have a cassette, all that space that it takes up, if you look at the back wheel, these spokes are almost straight up and down, where these are angled just to make up space for that. Where on this, they don't have that kind of issue. So that's another nice feature of an internal hub. And they will last practically forever. If you periodically take them apart and grease them, really clean them out and re-grease them with high-grade synthetic grease, since everything's inside a sealed housing, you don't have to worry about it. Anyway, I don't ride this a lot in the rain. It stays sealed pretty well for me, but I don't know how I'd do if you're just pounding through puddles and riding through hurricanes and monsoons. But for me, it's been really nice and has already lasted a long time, and it's been really reliable. And it's just so smooth and so super quiet. You just have the sound of the tires. The big gear on the back is actually a 22 tooth. I found that it was this gear too high for me, and I wanted lower gearing, so it came with an 18, I moved to a 20, and then now the 22 is what I'm really satisfied at. One quick note is you do lose some extra energy because of the planetary gears inside, but it's well worth it. Once you get used to the shifting, it's just like an automatic transmission that you manually control. It's really pretty awesome, because you can just let off the pedals and go to any arbitrary gear you want to and immediately put power on. You don't have to shift and then make sure the chain's derailed and deal with all that noise and the crunching of the chain. The chain never gets derailed. So, and in fifth gear, it's a 1-to-1 ratio, so the planetary gears don't even spin when you're in fifth gear, and in that situation it's just as efficient as any other bicycle in fifth gear. So anyway, Catus Maximus out. Thanks for watching. Feel free to subscribe.